My fiancé mucked me on a live stream, so I ended the wedding mid-chat. My fiancé said, "He's so clueless his savings will pay for my real life." While her friends laughed. Then, one snorted. "Just cook twice so we kill fun the honeymoon and never notice." I just typed, "Wedding's off. Good luck without my account. By morning." 31 missed calls and 1 message. Ethan, please, let me explain. My hands are still steady as I type this, even though what went down 3 hours ago in that courtroom still feels surreal. But holy shit, the justice was so perfect, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Let me explain how I found out my entire relationship was a lie. Because this story gets absolutely fucking insane. My name is Joseph McSwain, and 6 months ago, I was the luckiest guy alive. Or so I thought. I'm 32. Work as a financial analyst in Denver. Decent salary, pulling $85,000 a year. Decent savings account with about $43,000 that I'd been carefully building for our future. The kind of stable, predictable life that looks perfect on paper. I was engaged to Madeline Hayes, 29. This gorgeous blonde who worked in marketing at a tech startup downtown. She had these bright green eyes that lit up when she smiled. Always dressed perfectly. Always knew exactly what to say in social situations where I felt awkward. Everything about her seemed designed to complement my quiet, analytical personality. We'd been together for 3 years. Engaged for 8 months. Wedding planned for December 15th at the Broadmoor Resort in Colorado Springs. Everything paid for. Everything perfect. Everything. Exactly how Madeline had dreamed it since she was a little girl. At least that's what she told me. Every time I wrote another check, I'd put down deposits totaling nearly $15,000 because I wanted Madeline to have her dream wedding. The venue alone cost $12,000 for the day. But she'd fallen in love with the mountain views and the way the light hit the ballroom during golden hour. The photographer was another $3,000 because she insisted we needed someone who specialized in luxury weddings. The flowers were going to cost $2,800 because she wanted white roses and peonies, which apparently are expensive and difficult to source in December. Every expense seemed reasonable when she explained it. Every decision felt like we were building something beautiful together. I thought I was investing in our happiness, creating memories that would last a lifetime. I was actually funding my own elaborate humiliation. The discovery happened on a Tuesday night in March. Madeline was supposed to be at her book club, which met every other week at different members' houses. They'd been reading literary fiction, lately authors like Elena Ferrante and Hanya Yanagihara, books that seemed way above my intellectual pay grade when Madeline tried to discuss them over dinner. I was home alone in our shared apartment. Just finished a late conference call with our Tokyo office about quarterly projections. Numbers had been off all day, requiring 3 hours of additional analysis that left my brain feeling fried. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and collapsed onto our gray sectional sofa, the one Madeline had picked out because it photographed well for Instagram. I was scrolling through social media to decompress, just mindlessly flipping through stories and posts, when I saw the notification. Brittany Walsh, one of Madeline's college friends from CU Boulder, was going live on Instagram. The title read, "Pre-Wedding Chaos with Wine Glass and Party Emojis." I clicked out of pure curiosity. Brittany had this modern apartment in Lohi, with exposed brick walls and industrial lighting that always made great backgrounds for social media. She was hosting what looked like an impromptu girls' night. Wine bottles scattered across her glass coffee table, cheese and crackers arranged on wooden boards. That particular chaotic energy that comes from women who've had just enough alcohol to be completely honest about everything. The camera was propped up on Brittany's mantelpiece, giving a wide view of her living room. I could see 4 women total, all of them people I recognized from various social gatherings over the past 3 years. And there was my fiancé, sitting cross-legged on Brittany's cream-colored couch, gesturing dramatically with a wine glass filled with what looked like Pinot Grigio. She was wearing the black wrap dress I'd complimented that morning when she left for work, her blonde hair falling in perfect waves over her shoulders. I was about to click away. These kinds of girls' nights weren't really my business when I heard my name. Brittany was asking about wedding planning stress, whether Madeline was feeling overwhelmed with all the details and decisions. Standard conversation for someone getting married in 9 months. That's when Madeline started laughing. Not her normal laugh. The one that made me fall in love with her during our first date at Mercantile Dining. This was different, sharper, more calculating. Like she was about to share the punchline of a joke I wasn't in on. "Ethan's so clueless," she said, and my stomach dropped into my shoes. Ethan. That's what she called me when she was being affectionate. when we were cuddling on Sunday mornings, or when she was trying to convince me to try some new restaurant she'd found on Instagram. But this wasn't affectionate. This was mocking. The room went completely silent in my apartment. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I could feel my chest getting tight like someone was pressing down on my rib cage. I mean, I'm marrying him for stability, Madeline continued, taking another sip of wine. His savings will fund the house, the trips, everything I actually want to do with my life. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my hand tighten around my beer bottle, felt heat rising up my neck, despite the air conditioning running full blast. Her friends were laughing now. Ashley Morrison, who I'd met at dinner parties, and always seemed so sweet, so interested in hearing about my work. Jessica Chen, who'd been a bridesmaid at 2 other weddings we'd attended together, who'd complimented my tie at the last one, all of them giggling like they were in on some hilarious secret that I'd been too stupid to figure out. He's so predictable, Madeline continued, gesturing with her wine glass. Like, he thinks I actually enjoy our quiet Saturday nights, watching documentaries about World War II or financial markets. I'm literally counting down the days until I can use his credit card for that European honeymoon and start redecorating his boring-ass house. My boring-ass house. The house I'd bought 2 years ago, specifically because she mentioned loving the neighborhood. The house where I'd proposed to her in the backyard, under the maple tree, she said reminded her of her childhood home in Fort Collins. Easily controlled. Someone off-camera added sounded like Sarah, another college friend who worked in PR. Exactly. Madeline laughed, leaning forward conspiratorially. He'll never question anything as long as I keep cooking dinner twice a week and pretending to be interested in his boring work stories about spreadsheets and client meetings. I stared at my phone screen, watching the woman I'd planned to spend my life with, systematically destroying every moment of happiness we'd shared together. Every quiet Saturday night where I thought we were building intimacy. Every dinner conversation where I thought she genuinely cared about my day. Every time she'd seemed interested in my career, my dreams, my thoughts about our future. All of it. Lies. Every single fucking thing had been an elaborate performance designed to separate me from my money. But here's the thing that surprised me most. I wasn't devastated. I wasn't heartbroken. I was calm. Eerily. Unnaturally calm. Like someone had just solved a puzzle I'd been working on subconsciously for months. All those times she'd seemed slightly bored during conversations. All those moments when her smile hadn't quite reached her eyes. All those occasions when her enthusiasm felt just a little too forced. A little too perfect. It all made sense now. I opened the chat function on the live stream. About 230 people were watching. Based on the viewer count in the top corner, I could see comments flowing by in real time. Hearts and laughing emojis from people who had no idea they were watching someone destroy her own life in real time. My username showed up as Joseph McSwain 32, my standard handle across most platforms. No hiding who I was. I typed 4 words. Am I? Though? The comment appeared on screen immediately, highlighted in that way that makes new messages stand out from the constant stream. Brittany glanced down at her phone where she was monitoring the chat, saw my username and my message, and her face went completely white. I could see her mouth forming my name silently. He could see her eyes going wide with the realization of what had just happened. I typed again, making sure my username was clearly visible to everyone watching. Madeline. Wedding's off. You can fund your own dream house. The silence that followed was absolutely beautiful. Madeline's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Her face cycled through confusion, recognition, and pure panic in about 3 seconds. The other women in the room stopped talking entirely, all of them staring at Brittany's phone like it had just announced the end of the world. Joseph. Madeline whispered, like saying my name quietly would somehow undo what had just happened. I typed one final message before closing the app. Thanks for saving me $15,000 in a lifetime of being used. Then I screenshotted everything, opened my screen recording app, and captured the last 2 minutes of the live stream for evidence. Technology is beautiful when you use it right. My phone started ringing immediately. Madeline's ringtone, some Taylor Swift song she'd programmed in because she thought it was cute. I declined the call without even looking at the screen. It rang again. Declined. Again. Declined. I walked to my kitchen, opened another beer, and started making a list on a yellow legal pad I kept in the junk drawer. Cancel the venue. Cancel the caterer. Cancel the photographer. Cancel the band. Cancel the florist. Cancel the honeymoon reservations to Italy that I'd booked through my travel agent. Most importantly, cancel the joint bank account we'd opened for wedding expenses. the one that currently held $8,000 of my money. I spent the next hour on the phone with vendors, explaining that the wedding was canceled and asking about refund policies. Most were surprisingly understanding, especially when I mentioned that the cancellation was due to discovering fraudulent intent on the part of my former fiancé. The venue would refund 80% since we were more than 6 months out. The caterer would refund everything except a $500 deposit. The photographer was keeping $1,000 but refunding the rest. The band would refund everything except their booking fee. All told, I was going to lose about $3,000 in non-refundable deposits. A small price to pay for avoiding a lifetime of financial manipulation? The pounding on my front door started exactly 28 minutes after I'd posted that final comment. Madeline had apparently broken several traffic laws getting from Brittany's apartment in Lodi to my house in Capitol Hill. I could hear her voice through the door, high-pitched and desperate, completely different from the confident, mocking tone she'd been using on the live stream. Joseph, please, let me explain. It wasn't what it sounded like. I was drunk. They were joking around and I got caught up in it. I opened the door slowly, taking in the scene. She was standing there with mascara running down her face and black streaks, still wearing the same black dress I'd seen on the live stream, but now wrinkled and disheveled. Behind her was her mother, Sharon Hayes, looking like she'd been dragged from bed and was ready to murder someone with her bare hands. Sharon was 54, worked as a real estate agent in Boulder, and had never particularly liked me. She thought Madeline was settling by marrying someone in finance instead of finding a doctor or lawyer. The irony of that opinion wasn't lost on me now. You can't just cancel a wedding over a misunderstanding. Sharon said before I could speak, "Do you have any idea how much this is going to cost us?" "Actually, it's going to cost me," I replied calmly. Since I paid for everything, that was the first lie in their damage control strategy. They hadn't contributed a single dollar to wedding expenses. Despite Sharon's real estate career and her husband's job as an insurance executive, every deposit, every vendor payment, every expense had come from my account. Madeline pushed past her mother. Reaching for my hands like physical contact would somehow reset our relationship to yesterday morning. "Baby, please, I love you." I was just venting to the girls. You know how women get when they're together? We say things we don't mean. I looked at her for a long moment. 3 years together, 8 months engaged, hundreds of conversations about our future, our dreams, our plans. And she was still lying to my face. "Which part didn't you mean?" I asked. "The part where you said I was completely out of touch? The part where you said you were marrying me for money? Or the part where you said I was easily controlled?" "All of it. None of it. I don't know." I was drunk and telling the truth. The conversation continued for another 15 minutes, cycling through the same denials and explanations and desperate promises. Sharon tried playing the family card, reminding me that they'd already sent invitations to 68 relatives. Madeline tried playing the love card, insisting that her feelings were real, even if her words had been careless. None of it mattered. I'd heard her real thoughts, expressed freely when she thought I wasn't listening. That was who she actually was. They left around midnight, Madeline crying and Sharon threatening legal action if I didn't reconsider. I slept better that night than I had in months. The next morning brought a different kind of chaos. My phone had 17 missed calls from various Hayes family members by the time I woke up at 7 a.m. Text messages ranged from pleading to accusatory to downright threatening. Madeline's sister, Emma, "You're ruining her life over one mistake." Madeline's cousin, Tracy, "She's been planning this wedding for 8 months." Madeline's Aunt Patricia, "Family forgives. That's what love means." I deleted all of them without responding. But the real shit show started when I got to work. I'm a senior analyst at Morrison Financial Group, a boutique firm that specializes in portfolio management for high net worth individuals. Small company, about 30 employees, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone's business, whether they want to or not. I'd taken vacation days for the honeymoon and made no secret about the upcoming wedding. My colleagues had been hearing about venue visits and menu tastings for months. My colleague Dave Chin stopped by my desk around 10 a.m. with a confused expression and a cup of coffee that smelled like the expensive stuff from the place across the street. "Dude, I thought your wedding was in December." It's not anymore." "What happened?" I gave him the basic story, editing out some of the more humiliating details, but keeping the core facts. Dave's eyebrows climbed higher with each revelation. She said that on a live stream, with people watching, about 230 people. Jesus Christ. "Are you okay?" Surprisingly, I was better than okay. Actually, I felt like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't know was there, and suddenly it was gone. The constant low-level anxiety about wedding planning, about making sure everything was perfect for Madeline, about living up to her expectations, all of it had disappeared. The story spread through the office by lunchtime, not because I was gossiping, but because Dave has the biggest mouth in Denver and apparently couldn't resist sharing what he called the most insane breakup story in Morrison Financial Group history. By Wednesday, I was getting supportive messages from coworkers, friends, even my dentist who'd somehow heard about it, through his hygienist whose sister worked with someone who knew Brittany. Denver's a small city when it comes to gossip. The general consensus was that I dodged a massive bullet. Thursday brought the first legal threat. The email came from Crawford, Hayes and Associates, a law firm I'd never heard of but that apparently specialized in family law and personal injury cases. The subject line read, "Demand for damages. McSwain Hayes wedding cancellation." They wanted $6,500 for various deposits and expenses that the Hayes family claimed to have incurred, plus $3,000 for emotional distress, plus legal fees, plus interest calculated from the date of cancellation. The letter was 4 pages of legal jargon that basically accused me of breach of promise and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It demanded payment within 10 business days, or they would file suit in Denver County Court. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, Audrey Chen, who I'd used for my house purchase 2 years earlier. Audrey was 47, sharp as a knife, and had a reputation for not taking bullshit from anyone. She called me an hour later, and I could hear her laughing before she even started talking. "Joseph, this is the most ridiculous legal threat I've seen in 15 years of practice. They have no case. You can cancel an engagement for any reason, and public admission of fraudulent intent is definitely sufficient cause, so I don't have to pay anything. Not only do you not have to pay, but if they actually filed this nonsense, we can countersue for harassment and legal fees. Plus, that live stream recording you mentioned, that's gold. Pure gold." I told Audrey to respond with a formal rejection of their demands, along with copies of the live stream screenshots and recordings. Her response letter was a masterpiece of legal writing, 3 pages, that systematically destroyed every claim they'd made, cited relevant Colorado law, and included this beautiful paragraph. "Furthermore, my client possesses video evidence clearly demonstrating that Ms. Hayes entered into the engagement with fraudulent intent, explicitly stating her plan to marry him solely for financial gain. This evidence will be presented to the court should your clients proceed with this frivolous litigation." Friday was quiet. Too quiet. Monday brought escalation that I should have seen coming. Madeline showed up at my office building at lunchtime. Our security guard, Marcus, called up to warn me there was someone in the lobby asking for me who seemed emotionally unstable and possibly under the influence. I went downstairs to find Madeline pacing near the elevators, looking like she hadn't slept since Tuesday. She was wearing gray sweatpants and an oversized CU Boulder hoodie, hair in a messy bun. The kind of appearance that would have concerned me a week earlier, but now just looked like manipulation. "We need to talk," she said as soon as she saw me. "No, we don't. Joseph, please. 5 minutes. Let me explain everything." "You already explained everything." On live stream. To 230 strangers. She followed me toward the parking garage, her voice getting more desperate with each step. I could smell wine on her breath, even though it was only 12:30 in the afternoon. "I love you. I know I screwed up, but I love you. We can work through this." I stopped next to my car and turned to face her fully. "Madeline, which part of your livestream confession was inaccurate? What do you mean? You said you were marrying me for stability and money. Was that true?" "I was drunk." "That's not what I asked." "Was it true?" "It's more complicated than that." "Was it true?" She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating whether honesty or continued deception would be more effective. "Yes. But thank you for finally being honest." I got in my car and drove away, leaving her standing in the parking garage. Tuesday brought harassment that crossed into criminal behavior. My phone rang 18 times between 8 a.m. and noon. Different numbers. But I recognized Madeline's voice each time during the few seconds before I hung up. She'd apparently downloaded one of those apps that generates burner phone numbers. Wednesday, she showed up at my gym at 6 a.m., waiting by my car when I came out after my workout. Thursday, she somehow got into my apartment building and was sitting in the hallway outside my door when I got home from work. Each encounter involved the same script: apologies, explanations, promises that she'd changed, begging for another chance. Each time I told her to leave me alone, each time she escalated. Friday brought the incident that finally made me involve law enforcement. I discovered that Madeline still had access to a Nordstrom credit card account I'd added her to the previous year. She'd racked up $620 in charges over the past week. Makeup, clothes, shoes, accessories. A shopping spree funded by her emotional distress over our breakup. When I called to report the unauthorized charges, Nordstrom's fraud department informed me that she'd also attempted to make a large purchase at their jewelry counter, a $3,000 necklace, but the transaction had been declined due to insufficient credit limit. That's when I realized this wasn't grief or temporary insanity. This was calculated retaliation. I contacted Detective Rivera at Denver PD and filed a report for credit card fraud and stalking. The evidence was overwhelming: documented harassment, unauthorized financial activity, and a clear pattern of escalating behavior. But Madeline wasn't done. Monday morning brought the nuclear option. I arrived at work to find my boss, Patricia Morrison, waiting at my desk with a concerned expression and a printed email in her hands. "Joseph, we need to talk privately." In her office, Patricia showed me an email that had been sent to our entire company directory over the weekend. The sender was listed as concerned friend, but the writing style was unmistakably Madeline's. The email claimed that I was emotionally abusive and potentially dangerous. It described me as someone who uses financial control to manipulate women and has anger management issues that make him unsafe to work with. It suggested that my colleagues be cautious around Joseph McSwain and consider whether someone with his psychological profile should have access to client financial information. 28 people had received this email, 28 people I worked with every day, including clients who were copied on our company distribution list. Patricia looked genuinely concerned as she handed me the printout. "Joseph, I've worked with you for 4 years. This doesn't sound like the person I know, but I have to ask, is there anything going on that I should be aware of?" I told her the whole story: the live stream, the canceled wedding, the harassment, the credit card fraud. I showed her the video evidence on my phone, let her read the text messages, walked her through the timeline of escalating behavior. By the end of our conversation, Patricia was furious. "This is defamation. This is harassment. This is potentially criminal." She immediately sent a company-wide email explaining that the previous message was from a disgruntled individual with no connection to our company and that all allegations were completely false and had been made in retaliation for personal relationship issues. She also forwarded the defamatory email to Audrey, who added it to our growing file of evidence. That afternoon, we filed for a restraining order. The hearing was scheduled for Friday morning at 9 a.m. in Denver County Court. Madeline would have the opportunity to respond to our petition and present her side of the story. I spent Thursday night preparing with Audrey, organizing our evidence into a comprehensive timeline of harassment and escalation. Friday morning arrived gray and cold, typical November weather in Denver. I met Audrey at the courthouse at 8:30, wearing my best suit and carrying a folder thick with documentation. Madeline arrived at 8:55 with a different lawyer, not the firm that had sent the original demand letter, but someone who looked young and inexperienced. She was dressed professionally for the first time since I'd seen her at my office, but I could see the strain around her eyes, the way she kept fidgeting with her engagement ring that she was still wearing. Judge Martinez called our case at 9:15. Audrey presented our evidence methodically: the live stream recording, screenshots of text messages, documentation of credit card fraud, copies of the defamatory email, witness statements from my building's security guard about unauthorized visits. It was devastating and comprehensive. When Madeline's lawyer tried to respond, claiming that his client was simply trying to reconcile with her fiancé after a misunderstanding, Judge Martinez cut him off. "Counselor, I've reviewed the evidence. The live stream recording alone establishes that your client entered into this engagement under false pretenses. The subsequent behavior harassment, fraud, defamation clearly demonstrates a pattern of escalating retaliation." That's when I heard it. Madeline, thinking her voice was too quiet to be picked up by the court reporter's equipment, leaned over and whispered to her lawyer, "Brittany, you weren't supposed to go live that night." Judge Martinez heard it too. So did Audrey. So did the court reporter. "Excuse me, Miss Hayes," the judge said sharply. "Did you just admit that the livestream incident was planned?" Madeline's face went completely white. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. "No, Your Honor. I was just..." "Miss Hayes, you just suggested that someone named Brittany wasn't supposed to broadcast your comments that night. That implies you made those statements intentionally, knowing they were being recorded, but not intending for your fiancé to see them." The courtroom was dead silent. That makes this significantly worse. Not better. Judge Martinez granted our restraining order immediately. 200 yards minimum distance. No contact through third parties. No social media contact. Violation would result in immediate arrest. He also referred the credit card fraud and defamation issues to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges. As we left the courtroom, I could see Madeline crying in the hallway while her lawyer explained that she'd just admitted to premeditated deception in open court. That was 3 hours ago. I'm sitting in my apartment now, drinking a beer and watching the news, feeling something I haven't felt in months. Complete peace. Madeline is back, living with her parents in Boulder. The wedding venue has been rented to another couple. The deposits I lost were less than what I would have spent on our honeymoon alone. Her friends from the livestream have all blocked me on social media, apparently embarrassed about their role in exposing her true intentions. But several people who knew us as a couple have reached out to say they always thought something seemed off about our relationship. My colleague Dave summed it up best yesterday. Dude, you didn't lose a fiancé. You escaped a financial predator. The credit card fraud charges are still pending. The district attorney's office is reviewing the defamation case, but honestly, I don't care about any of that anymore. I saved my money. I saved my sanity. I saved my future. And I have a screen recording that proves sometimes the best revenge is just letting people reveal who they really are. Some people marry for love. Some people marry for money. The smart ones make sure they know which one they're getting before they sign the papers.